Thank you for downloading this podcast from the British Theatre Guide. For more information about British Theatre Guide, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.
In 2009, TV writers Trevor Suthers and John Chambers put together a night of short, brand new plays written by established TV writers, which took its name from its original venue, the Joshua Brooks pub on Princess Street in Manchester. 15 years on, and now at Fringe Venue 53.2, JB Shorts is an established biannual event on the Manchester theatre calendar that regularly attracts established stage and TV writers, directors and actors, mixed with less well-known ones, and often a few celebrities in the audience, for its 2-week runs of 6 15-minute plays. With the 25th JB Shorts about to open, I spoke to co-founder Trevor Suthers together with actor James Quinn, who wrote for the very first JB and has written, directed and performed in many since, about what JB is all about and what this next run will offer. But first, I asked Trevor to tell the story of how he and John Chambers came up with the idea in the first place.
Yeah, this was a meeting, just a chat John and I were having in the Abercrombie in Manchester. And I just had a play accepted to a short play festival in the States. I can't remember which one it was now. There are so many. And I was talking to John about this, and I was sort of saying, well, basically, we could do this sort of thing here in Manchester. And I said at the time, I believed there was nothing, even though there are hundreds of these in type shows. They're all organised slightly differently and constructed. We have our own way of organising ours that's a bit different from lots of others, but it's still the essential. It's usually 6 10-minute plays or 10 10-minute plays sometimes. But I thought 10 minutes was a bit too short. 15 minutes more like it, and 6 would be enough for anybody. And I'd also had a play on in what was probably a forerunner of us, which was maybe the very first short play production, and that was at Southern Playhouse in London, and they had 2 seasons of 6 short plays, and I was in both seasons, and that was a few years before this, because we're talking 2010 when John and I had our first chat. And we both thought it'd be a great idea to sort of see if we can launch something along those lines here in Manchester. And that's basically how it began. I mean, the main thing is that I had the idea and the construction, but crucially, John had the contacts.
Right.
Far more influential a writer than he was. And it was John who sort of recruited the team and got things going that way.
And James, how were you involved? Were you one of the team that John contacted?
Well, I was quite lucky, really, because originally John had got a team together of Dave Simpson, Di Whitley, Peter Kerry, Lindsay Williams, and another writer. But that other writer dropped out, and I got it's actually 2000. Yeah, I was just off the bench, really. But it was 2009, actually. Sorry to correct.
Yes.
The call about, do you want to do this thing? I was writing short plays, and it was TV writers, and it has been till quite recently. And I had the most tenuous qualification. I'd had a couple of scripts commissioned, but nothing had ever been on the TV that I'd written, so it was a very tenuous. So I was quite lucky. Anyway, he invited me, and then Dave and Di had written a play called Secret Life, which they asked me to be in, and Roger Haynes was directing that. That was also a very vital link in the chain when Roger Haynes was asked to direct one of the plays, because Roger then for many years until quite recently became our overseeing artistic director, really, where he would coordinate all technical aspects of the production, and was pivotal, really, in it going on.
Yeah, and Roger at that time, still, there was quite a big name, really, wasn't he, to get involved with a small fledgling thing like this.
Yeah, well, and in terms of sort of how did we get it started? Well, John and I went round quite a few locations, bit of a pub crawl, really, around looking for a space, and we defined a space as anywhere that had a raised platform and had lights above it. You know, that was regarded as a space. Because I'd also done plays on Oldham Street in the Night and Day Cafe, which was the sort of thing I always sort of envisaged. A Night and Day Cafe again just had, you know, small stage, some lights. I did plays there previous to JB Short. We were turned down by Brits Protection because apparently they couldn't give us the. I can't remember what it was. It was a funny excuse, so we didn't make it there. But interestingly enough, because that British Protection again, John had plays on there as well. We thought that might be a good place, but they turned us down. And it was just by pure chance, just by going somewhere else, because obviously Joshua Brooks, you know, which was also opposite where the BBC was in those days, just right over the road, BBC, you know, radio and TV. And we thought, oh, this would be a good place. And so we were shown down the basement. It's quite funny. And yes, there was a space, but they had these big columns. But we thought, well, we just worked round the columns. Well, you remember it yourself, Dave, because obviously you went to some of the early shows. And so we sort of jumped at the chance, but on the proviso, because they're very nice, the people at Joshua Brooks in those days. And funnily enough, the bloke who gave us the go-ahead, he then disappeared off to Australia almost straight afterwards. I don't know. I think he did. I might have seen the first show. I don't know. But like I was saying, the proviso was that we could only have it till 9 o'clock. Oh, yeah, no, because they had the disco in every night at 10, you know, and we had to clear out all our stuff before 10 o'clock. That set the pattern for things, really. It's quite interesting.
It just occurred to me, Trevor, that if the Britain's Protection had taken you on, it'd been BP shows. And would that have sounded like a link to a large oil company?
That's BP. Well, we already get confused with I think it's sports, and JB Sport.
JB Sports, yeah.
But yeah, it would have been. But as I said, oh yeah, I know what it was. It's because they had the sort of a group met on a particular night and you know, so we couldn't get the full week's run, and also part and parcel of the thinking behind it was definitely to do 2 weeks, because I'd done so many plays in Manchester, you know, that I knew, and then they ran for 3 nights, and everyone was great, and then they finished. Yeah. So I thought, no, we must have 2 weeks to give the thing a proper run, and also, you know, get attention, get people to come. But people don't you know, didn't know it was on for at least a week anyway. And so we're setting, you know, the 2 week run as well, which was very unusual at that time.
It's critical that.
Normally in Fringe Theatre, it was 3 nights, 3 nights of anticipation.
It is critical. Sorry, it's just that when it was first, when I was first approached, and it was told there was a 2 week run, I thought, goodness me, that's a big commitment to ask of actors. But then when we got to the end of the first week, being in the play and having written one, I was so pleased that we had another week. Just because, literally, as Trevor implies, when you're an actor, you know, it's very short, and there's still, as you know, David, there are still like the play that the Rupert Hill's play that was on the other night was like 3-4 performances, and as a performer, you know, I mean, like when I did Importance of Being Earnest recently, The Exchange, there's 4 previews. So you the 5th performance is a press night. So in Fringe terms, that'd be it, you know. So I think it was a master stroke to make it a 2, and you therefore can build an audience as well.
It's so unusual for new writing generally, unless it's with a big name writer, to get that sort of run at something. But like you say, something has to settle in front of an audience for you to find out, even as a writer, whether it's any good, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Another thing about the, it was basically because John and I had set a target for, whether it was going to be whether we could get 20 people a night, because both John and I were used to sort of, we'd been doing a lot of fringe theatre around Manchester prior to this. In regard, if you got 20 and it was worth it. So obviously that was our target, and one thing that was really thrilling for us is that we easily exceeded that. But that was that. If we only got 20 people in that, we would have said it's not worth it. Forget it.
By the second week, we were full pretty much every night. And I think the last Friday of that first run, we somehow crammed about 150 people in. People were stood behind the seat. Well, you know how cramped it was. People stood at the back. So we knew. And then, of course, the question arose, should we try and do this again? Maybe. And then that was also a success. So then it became a twice-a-year thing.
Yeah. But also, another factor in terms of sort of its viability and its sustainability was based on my thinking that if you have an awful lot of people involved in it, and I thought to myself, well, everybody's going to know about at least 10 people. Surely, if they could get to come to it just themselves, then you could get that sort of you could get that core audience just by the fact that there are more people involved in our fringe production than any other fringe production anywhere.
The joy for me about JB1 was when it was John who approached me, and I actually submitted 2 plays. One was kind of like a fairly tepid love story thing. It was an attempt at a play, but then the other thing was that for basically since I was a boy, I've been fascinated and amused by the kind of stuff that post-match interviews come out with. And so I wrote, which was, I suppose, if you were being less charitable, more of a prolonged sketch, really, about post-match, where it went from the pundit to the touch, the tunnel interview and all that. And it's something I always wanted to do. And that went on, and it was later on Radio 5 Live. And, but it was the fact that I was asked to do that gave me an opportunity because I sent the plays and Trevor said, I think you should do the football one, which was quite right, by the way, because a competent piece of writing perhaps, but wouldn't have set the world on fire. But I thought at the end of the day, as it's called, also provided a contrast to some of the other plays. I
remember, James, when he said, and also, the fact that, you changed the male interview to Verity's role. Remember?
That's right. It's such a misogynist.
And that also gave you another thread. Do you remember?
That's right.
So that it was even better. Yeah.
Right, I've got a Dalek, right? There's a Dalek, remote control Dalek. Sorry, you heard a sound, listener. Sometimes just go off. They pick up a taxi signal or something and just go off and say, you will be exterminated. But yes, Trevor's absolutely right, because in my old school misogyny, I had a cast of 5. There was an interviewer and various players and managers coming in the tunnel, so to speak. And then there was the interviewer and the pundit, which John Henshaw played. But when I sent the original script, it was all male, including the tunnel interviewer, and Trevor pointed out, why can't that be a woman? And of course, I thought, of course it could, and it did. Therefore, there was a thread of like that.
Yeah,
she was going out with a footballer now. She was somebody who matched her ambition and all that sort of thing. So I think what Trevor's trying to say is I owe it all to Trevor, basically. Most of it, anyway.
If we're throwing the compliments back, Davy Shaw's would not be here today if it wasn't with James. There's no way I would have sustained it.
That cellar at JB, I remember being crammed in with lots of people many times. Although being press, I was given a seat near the front, it still felt quite enclosed. And those pillars, I do remember, James, you pole dancing around them. one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was, and also that was the show. Funnily enough, where there was a cheese wire, it was a chicken wire for one of the plays, which was wrapped. That was it. And one night I came prancing on, and I just caught me round the, and I was like, and I was sort of got act through, going sort of go through the very professionally through the fact that I had a bit of kind of barbed wire around my nether region, shall we say?
Yeah, the chicken wire playing.
Yeah.
I do remember because it was still a pub upstairs. We weren't that far away from the general public, and I do remember. I don't remember the time when Di from the Manchester Theatre Awards panel suddenly appeared on stage because she came down the wrong staircase.
Oh, that was wonderful! That was fantastic.
Brilliant. There was members of the audience did that. They would come around the back expecting thinking the dance had started. Somebody did walk on the stage. A pint of lager in that, and had to be off you go. It was extraordinary. But there were all sorts of things to contend with. Big football matches. Once was St. Patrick's night, and it was people banging poles on. It was utterly mayhem upstairs. We were trying to do plays, and ironically, because I'm involved with FC United, right? And one night, it was in JB4. FC were playing on a Friday night away at Rochdale, famous night for FC in the FA Cup. And I was in a play in the first half. And so it finished by 7:45 because we started at 7 those days. The kickoff of the FC game was 7:45. I was sat upstairs watching it. The play I'd written was on in the second half. And FC scored twice. And I screamed both times during my own play, the poor actors in my own play. But that was the nature of Joshua Brooks, and the taking down the set and piling up chairs. That was such a mission. It was such a luxury to move to somewhere where we didn't have to take the set down.
And that became the aesthetic. Really, that became the requirement, which made it what it was. Really, wasn't it?
And we had to put in the information brief for actors that you will be out. If you're in the first half, you will have to turn up early to put everything up. And if you're in the second half, and you would,
and remember the auditions we had. Obviously, the actors had to show that they could stack chairs. Remember? So we had chairs in the audition.
That's it. Yeah. Let me show you that again. Yeah. No, it was extraordinary. But also, you'd have to be a bit of a school because there'd be certain members of the company would be not as quick at coming down to help at the end. So you'd be going rounding somebody up like a school teacher saying, can you just come down for a quarter of an hour and do this, which wasn't a welcome aspect to it. But again, it was part of the eccentricity of
there wasn't that much involved set-wise, but it was a tiny stage. So, it was... I remember being fascinated just by the changeovers because they became so efficient, even by press night.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's Roger Haynes, who demanded the same standards would be applied if he was directing a show at the Library Theatre or a big West End show. That he gave it the polish, and he would get well-known lighting design because we eventually shared the cost of a lighting bar and some lamps with the venue, and he got Nick Richings, a very well-known lighting designer, to actually design the thing. So that all added to what we were able to achieve. So it's the thing about JB Shorts is, which you must you'd be lucky if you've never heard one of us say it, is that a lot of theatre goers love going to see JB Shorts, but what's achieved is a lot of people who don't go to the theatre, some of them were dragged along by a partner saying, play, and then are saying, when's the next one, because it's approachable format, it's not expensive, you take your beer in, one play isn't floating your boat, there's another one along in a minute. So, and particularly a lot of FC United fans came from some of the football plays that I did early on. But some of whom are quite cultured people, don't get me wrong, but a lot of whom would never go near a theatre, but they bring like little posses of family and stuff. So it gives, it's a despite all that's been done, and the subsidised theatre is a great thing, and all which it is that a lot of theatres remain uncomfortable environment. Watching plays remains an uncomfortable environment for a lot of particularly working class people, and I think JB Shorts has created an atmosphere which includes, anyone who fancies a bit of a night out, and a few stories.
And it always does seem to be quite a varied audience when I've been.
Yeah, it's a real
but you
mix.
get a lot of celebrities in the audience these days as well as on stage. But
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
when did that start? The people who are known off the telly started appearing on stage for nothing or next to nothing.
As I recall, see, John Henshaw was in the first one. He obviously. So Cleaver from Corrie was in the second one. And that got people along and got people interested. So we've had some TV directors as well direct some of the plays, but quite a few people from Corrie have been in. And I think that, again, I saw that's another thing that, for the industry is we get good coverage from the industry, which is great for all the actors, particularly the young actors, because go and see a play. It's a busman's holiday, it's a bus operator's holiday. But for they enjoy seeing 20 actors in 6 different pieces, for the similar reasons to what I was saying about punters. So
before I thought the most amusing celebrity appearance we ever had, and not the biggest celebrity, but H from Steps.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I missed. I think that was one where I wasn't around.
It's terrible that I can't remember his real name. I think it's called Lee something. But anyway, H from Steps was in the JB Shorts, and we had sort of ultra H Steps fans who came to see every performance just so they can be something like 2 to 3 feet away.
It's just amazing, yeah. David Lloyd Bumble, the ex-England and Lancashire cricketer and commentator, absolutely loves it. He's unfortunately moved to North Yorkshire, so he's less of an attendee these days. But it's someone probably wouldn't go see that much theatre, but coming along, so it reaches.
I don't think it can stress too much, and James has emphasised that, but it's important for all of us, especially the core team, because the core team is myself, James, Lindsay Williams, Di Whitley, Dave Simpson, and Peter Curry. We're all really committed to this idea of accessible and sort of relatable theatre. In that people, obviously, I formed the Real Life Theatre Company donkeys years ago, but I called it that really because I really meant it. I wanted theatre to be a bit more like real life. I say that now, half my plays are sort of fantasies these days, but the thing is, it's that sort of, that people can actually relate to something that they see on the stage, that it might, they can actually conjure something up that feels that it might have been an experience that they might have had.
Yeah.
So, and that really matters. That's the core in the sense of the idea of what James talks about.
So what's the skill of writing a 15-minute play? Because to the uninitiated, it would seem a lot easier than writing a full-length play, but it's quite a discipline to write something that compact. And like James, you were saying about your first attempt was like a sketch. There is a fine line between a sketch and a one-act play, really, isn't there? So what is the skill to getting it right?
Well, I think the core thing is to sort of, it's very important to get, that first page. You've really got to get off to an attention-grabbing start, and that would help anybody who's interested in writing short play. There's no point in sort of rambling on for sort of 10 minutes and 5 minutes left for anything to really happen. So it's got to sort of get going underway fairly quickly. And obviously, you've got to have you've got to have some kind of arc, and ideally a surprise. And so it's to do with that sort of plot construction. And the great thing with it, sure, is that you cannot afford any superfluous dialogue. You cannot afford to be self-indulgent. You cannot afford to muse and meander, contemplate or cogitate. You have to get on with the story. You have to get on with the interactions with the characters. And, the core team are so good at this. much better than me. But that, when you see it, you'll see that you can tell the difference between sort of what works and what doesn't. And of course, it is such a good discipline for a writer, isn't it? It's just not, is that line absolutely necessary? Because you've got to get it within the 15-minute thing if you can.
Yeah. Dave Simpson always says that he thinks the hardest thing is getting the idea. In his experience, once he's got the idea, he tends to write quite quickly. I've found I'm the least kind of experienced writer in the group for the reasons we've talked about, and I have approached in many different ways, really. I wrote a play about JB18, something like it was called Equivalent, about two people who'd done a heist at the Tate Gallery. And it was about a week or so before the deadline, and I hadn't got a clue what to write. And me and my partner, Faye, we have this thing sometimes. It's just a completely off the wall joke where we're sat there and I'll say, what should we say now? It's just a complete non sequitur piece of silliness. And I started the play with what should we say now? And I just started writing. I didn't know what it was going to be about, and suddenly evolved to what it was. Yeah. And I wrote it quite quickly. So I think when I've co-written with Peter Carey, and I co-wrote one with Trevor last time, with Peter Carey, Peter will be a great one for structure, no dialogue yet. This is the structure, get the structure. I'm less likely to do that. And there's not a right or wrong thing. It's just, but that's where Peter, as a very experienced writer who's written hundreds of episodes of TV and radio shows, works with that approach. And but I think it varies. And I think it's really interesting. I think when me and Trevor wrote one last time, Trevor was kind of the head writer in terms of how we approached it. I think it was about the structure and the thing. In fact, Trevor had written the first draft, I remember now. And then
because you go and think that the relationship we had is I just had a good idea and I wrote it out. To be honest, it was it was a sketch, really. It was James who sort of added character and motivation and story to it. I just sort of provided the concept. So the pair of us worked very well together in that sense.
And rarely, it's interesting also because there's been a lot of collaborations between the guest writer and sometimes co-writers. Sometimes co-writers collaborate with guest writers as well. But often one person will do with Peter, when I've written with Peter, sometimes say, I write 6 pages. He takes a pass at them and then adds the next 5 or 6 and so it rolls on and then you get together. It was similar to that with me and Trevor. We were in the room together a couple of times to polish it off, so to speak. But most of the time you're one version sending it back, But I think you will get some people who just have to be in the room all the time. Because I know that this is completely going off point, but Craig Cash and Phil Mealy, who wrote Early Doors, Phil said that they were always sat together, and there was never any of this, one of them doing a few pages and then sending it back. So writers write in all kinds of different ways. Some people write through the night, some people won't do that. All kinds of. Somebody told me once that Stephen King gets up at 6 o'clock in his dressing gown and slippers, writes till midday, and you cannot disturb him unless there's a fire. And then after that, he just has the normal life for the rest of the day, which sounds to me like absolutely the way to do it. But if you can achieve that,
You've not managed that yet.
Stephen King still won't do a JB Short. I've said we can collaborate together. I'll send you 5 pages. You could say, but Stephen, so grand.
On the subject of guest writers, because it's just another feature of David. We have had some fabulous guest writers. I mean, Lisa Hallsworth is quite important because I think she was our first guest writer. So she's done a few, and
Peter Bowkes. Peter Bowkes.
Recently, Peter Baker's done his second one for us now. So we've had some great contributions. Ian, I can't remember people's names. It must be
Ian. Which is it? What's he written for? There's been so many, Dave. You have to forgive us. Hundreds of people have been involved in
Julie's husband.
Oh, Julie Hesmanhel's husband. Yeah.
Oh, Ian Kershaw. Yes, of course.
Thank you. Yeah,
Prolific story writer. Yeah, amongst other things.
And co-saver of Oldham Coliseum.
Yes, that's right.
You've had a couple of changes of venue. You kept the name JB from the original one, but you moved to 53-2, and then you've moved with them, where you've got more space and more facilities. But it's kept They do seem to have a bit more staging, but you've kept the same sort of spare staging aesthetic, I think, haven't you? It's also the bare walls, you see. Yeah. That it does have a feel, because I think the thing about, for all the inconvenience of JB Shorts and the fact that, you were leaning on, and if you were behind the arch, then you've got fridges going and people changing barrels of beer and all that. For all of that, it had this kind of subterranean, slightly, under the radar, subversive feel to it. And I think to some extent, although 53 is much bigger, it does have, with their bare walls and everything, it retains. It's not like we went into, the Lowry or something and it became like a theatre. And I think that means it retained for the audience a welcome. You can go in and have your beer and all the rest of it. So I think, and it's also, it is bigger. I mean, whatever you think. I mean, we did start to outgrow, but we only left because Joshua Brooks was refurbished, and it meant there was nowhere to put our stuff, because they used to be under the stairs. That's where, under the stairs, it's like the TARDIS, the set, and about 100 and God knows how many, 80 odd, 90 chairs somehow got it. But when they refurbed, there was nowhere to put the stuff, you see. And they were talking about hiring a van and just taking up the stairs and putting it in a van overnight. And that, sorry, somebody nicks the van. Taking it up 2 flights of stairs out onto the street. But, and actually Simon, who took over, he didn't really wise. He said, "What are you going to call it then? It can't be JB Shorts." I said, "I don't think you patented the term JB, Simon." So anyway, we moved on. We had to. And this year, it's the 25th. I think it's 15 years, isn't it? So there was a bit of a hiatus around COVID, as there was for most of us. So what have you got for us this time? Well, we start off on a train, Railway Sleepers by Peter Carey, which is it's a kind of mixture of things. It's always difficult with what can you give away and what you can't, but it's a really nice, fast interaction between 3 passenger trains. Lovely performance by the train manager, Emma. We've got again. If you look at first, is it our first play actually set on a train? Yeah, I've had plays before in train stations. We've a lot, but we've never actually been on a train. And talking about being on a train is a lot better than that night sleep, I'll tell you. Yeah, but it's that's good. We thought, because it's on a train, we thought we'll start. It's the start of a journey. We thought, so we always weigh up the running order. Yeah. And then we move on to Trevor Suthers, the second play. Great, did the dress rehearsal last night. 3 cracking performances by 3 Irish actors. So I don't know if you want to say more about it, though, Trevor. Well, yeah, I mean, it's I think all the time. It's based on a true story, but it's not. I'm not retelling the story. I'm using the true story of the last witch burned in Ireland in 1895, Bridget Boland. I'm using everything I've researched about that to hopefully write something a little bit different around it, using
that thought. So it's a rumination or inspired by. Oh, it's a horror story as well.
Yeah, it's true. First ever one-person show is the third play, Zoe Iqbal, written by herself, directed by Paris Osborne. Paris has been Helen Parry, by the way, directing Trevor's.
Yeah.
Reuben Johnson back to direct Peter Carey's play. Erotic novel gone wrong, directed by Paris Osborne, who's been an associate producer with us since lockdown, and she gives her first outing as a director. Wacky, a very adult, shall we say, from Zoe. Zoe's always a joy to watch. And then there's an interval. Then You Can't Kill the Spirit. It's got some lovely songs in it. It's basically looking back at Greenham Common and a particular woman's experience. Beautiful Welsh accents as well, I may say, but some lovely singing in that. Who's the Dummy? Dave Simpson's play, which is directed by myself with newcomer Amelia Griffiths. And that is about a ventriloquist and his dummy, and the dummy is developing a life of its own. Echoes of Dead of Night.
Yeah.
But first, I don't know that I've seen a play on the stage of this. It's been done in films a lot, and I've really enjoyed. Vicky Binns is the dummy, Sonny the dummy, and does it's a great job. It's a lovely cast.
It sounds terrifying.
Yeah, it's good, but it's nice. And then finish off with Joyce Branner directing Diane Whitley and Lindsay Williams play Hens, which is about 4 women on a hen do out Barcelona, which you can imagine lots of complications arise, and they are kind of recounting what happened to the police. And so we're flashing back to the scene. It's incredibly wacky, and probably the right way to end the evening.
A little footnote on that, which I think is quite nice for the 25th. One of the featured actors in Hens is Verity Henry, and interestingly enough, Verity Henry was in the very first TV show.
Yeah, it's great. She is a most brilliant actor. Brilliant comedy actor. I've seen another thing. You've seen her in the classic when they did 15-minute shot, Bronte, Wuthering Heights. Yeah. And they did when they took the classics to Edinburgh, and the first version they did, which Verity unfortunately couldn't do in Edinburgh, they did a kind of sharing during lockdown. And Verity, I mean, it's kind of, I would put her on the level, towards the level of Peter Sellers. I mean, I know that's something. I think he was because he was a brilliant actor, but he was a brilliant comedy actor. Yeah. It's the ability to transition from not just accent to that into instantly to characters and have a real 3-dimensional. So it's great to have her back in JB.
And with Joyce Branner directing a piece like that, I mean, she really knows her way around that sort of piece, doesn't she?
She doesn't. She must be one of our regular. Yeah. She's great. It's always great to have her on.
The Lightning Speed series of plays.
He directed the classics. Yeah, when they took it to Edinburgh. Yeah. And she directed Wuthering Heights originally, I think, didn't she? And possibly War and Peace as well. But they did 15-minute.
And it's amazing how many people she managed to cram on the stage all at once as well.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, so it should be a good set.
So, how has it changed? Do you think? And I think James, your plays seem to have got more serious. They always seem to be comedy, but yours seem to have been more serious recently.
And I'm finally having a breather after this JB 15. The last time I didn't do one, but I suppose that's true. I think also, and I think probably some of my more recent plays are more perhaps like plays than, when I think of the thing I did with Peter, which was about the Great War, and it basically was World War One as if Fox News, a British version of Fox Steam News. Again, that was kind of knockabout, through the World War One in 15 minutes, those are the things that maybe come more naturally to me, but say something like Equivalent that I was talking about before, perhaps more like a play. And I think probably JB Shorts has given me the opportunity to, to try different kinds of writing and work with Peter and Trevor, for example, also that for is going to affect the kind of stuff you write, so I think but it's important, isn't it, to try. You don't always have to do one thing. Comedy maybe comes more naturally to me, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But doing more serious stuff is interesting if you can pull it off, find out where you went, as somebody once said.
Yeah. Trevor, how do you think JB has changed over 25 episodes?
Well, fortunately, the core of JB Shorts hasn't changed at all since JB1, and that's something I'm very pleased about. And the ethos is the same. It's slicker, it's more efficient. It's embraced the the world of technology. So it's not quite the sort of punk guerrilla theatre thing that I originally envisaged it to be, but that's not really a bad thing at all.
I mean, the thing is, the settings are this time still quite sparse. Really, it's not like particularly lavishly produced. But I think also one thing we have done in the last few JBs is we've relaxed the insistence on TV credits. We still have TV writers, but Zoe, for example, to my knowledge, doesn't have a TV credit.
Kathy
Crab, who's got involved, yeah. So there is that where we're still want writers with a track record,
Yeah, that is very. That again, that's just one of the precepts that was put involved, because the key when I was looking at ways to organise it, so many of these festivals and shows throughout the globe very often are competition. I did not want ours to be a competition because I didn't want to take the risk, and I didn't want to have to read lots of plays and turn people down.
Yeah.
I think we always have to say this, that people say, how do I submit a play? And we say, we don't have time to get into that, because that's a whole process. And I know people feel a bit excluded by that, but that's just the nature of what we feel we can achieve, really. We just don't.
It also gives us, it's what I said right at the beginning. It gives, even though, some of our plays have not, not been as great as maybe we'd like. I've always been fairly sure that if a writer has had, especially TV experience, but experience generally, the dialogue will at least sound credible, even if what they're saying, doesn't make it's basically the skill of dialogue writing, and that doesn't come up. It's rare, to get it right, so that it really does sound like real people saying real things, rather than a writer just sort of, articulating their thoughts. So I thought that would always give, and so it's the audience that's always the most. It's very audience orientated JB shows. That's the be all and end all. But it must be sort of enjoyable to the audience. And I suppose the other thing that we haven't mentioned, I'll just mention it very briefly. Again, I think it's a bit, but this is a writers-led project. There are 6 of us. We all have equal say, and as I say, it is a writer-led project. So the writer always has the last word in these shows all the time.
It's been described, and not just by me, as a Manchester institution now after 15 years. So that must be, on the one hand, it must be really nice for it to be thought of as that. But does it also put a bit of pressure on you as well to keep that up?
I always, at this time, when we're about to open, I'm always like, is this the one we're going to get found out? Is this the one? It's so hard to know. It's like with any show you do that's new, you can't know what people are going to think. And we did a dress rehearsal tonight, and it looks strong to me, but we'll see what people think. We've got healthy audiences for the first 4 performances. I'll tell you something, David, for some reason, Saturday night, 25 people. So people don't go out on Saturday night anymore. We're trying a first Sunday performance this time. and missing out the second Tuesday. But that's 40 odd, but we've got really healthy first 4 performances. But no, it's just you just can't be sure. And I hope that the audiences enjoyed this one as much as they've enjoyed the other ones. But in terms of
it's the only reason we ever do another one. Every after show meeting that we get together is always the same question: shall we do another one? So of course, we tend to say yes because people seem to want us to do another.
It's so much effort, though, David. It's effort. But if we did another one, because we did one of our 25 shows was a compilation. So that means we've done 144 new plays up to this one. So if we do one more, we'll have done 150. 15-minute plays. If we do JB 26, we'll see.
We'll see.
That was James Quinn and Trevor Suthers, who both feature in JB Shorts 25 as director and writer, respectively, which runs at 53.2 Arch 19 Watson Street, Manchester, from Wednesday the 9th to Saturday the 19th of October 2024. For more information about JB Shorts and to book tickets, see www.jbshorts.co.uk.
You've been listening to a podcast from British Theatre Guide. For more information, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.